Last Thursday we came through the lock at Cow Roast Marina, and we'd finished filling it, and I'd opened the gate and we were coming through, and there was a boater moored up at the water point who said leave it full because he was going to go through. Now normally when I close the gate, Peter has come up to the bank and I just step on the boat and we cruise away. On this occasion, it didn't happen that way. One part of the safety procedure that goes on in my brain whenever I step onto the boat was missing. So the result was I reached for the rail, I released my back foot and went sliding down the side of the boat into the canal water, which was freezing. I thought I was going to drown. I pulled up on that back button and then my legs swung under the boat. My left leg got tangled up with the propeller and the rudder. So I was in a lot of pain, screaming probably at this point. The boat was drifting towards the bank. There was a stone wall behind me, which was the edge of the bank, just outside the lock. So what were my options? Drowning, being crushed against the side of the canal wall, or mangled by a propeller. None of the options were very good to me at that point. And apart from anything else, I was by this time really, really cold. A passerby asked about calling an ambulance, and I said yes to that. I was able to call out yes. So she did that. She asked that question while I was still in the water, because by the time I was pulled out and covered in towels and blankets, the ambulance had arrived. I didn't know what damage I'd done. I just felt totally broken. And my good leg, which was my right leg, it just didn't feel good. It couldn't bear any weight. But I was able eventually, with Peter pushing from the back and the ambulance people pulling from the front, I was able to stand up on one leg. And they manoeuvred me round to sit on the stretcher, and then I was laid down and wheeled into the ambulance, really shivering a lot. And they covered me in heat blankets and what have you, and they did checks and lifted my legs up, and that was excruciating pain in my left leg. I didn't know what had happened at that point. They didn't know whether I had any other broken bones. They checked for broken collarbone, pelvis, back, neck. But obviously they did some of those checks actually when I was sitting on the boat, and that's what they knew then, that they could move me into a standing position, because they knew that I hadn't broken anything that was going to affect that movement. But when they got me into the ambulance, they did further checks on all of those. But the main thing was to get my temperature up, and we were heading to Watford General Hospital. Once I was in here, they gave me something called, I think it's called a Huggy Bear or a bear. It's a plastic blanket that's got air pockets in it. They pump hot air through it, and that really got me warm. But it took 2 or 3 hours to get me comfortably warm. I was still shivering and shaking. They couldn't get any blood from my finger or my hand. They couldn't get a decent temperature reading. Well, they did, but it was very low. I was in A&E probably from about 3:30 to 9:30. Then they moved me onto a surgical ward for the night. At about 4:30 or 5:30 in the morning, they then wheeled me to a new ward in orthopedics. They gave me the all clear to leave the hospital on the Friday morning, because they said that I had a broken fibula, which is the narrow bone in the lower leg. I had abrasions on the outer leg and a lot of bruising. I knew that I had a dressing put on there in A&E. The Thursday night they put a boot on me. They decided not to put me in plaster at that point. So I've been here now in this room since Friday morning, and the biggest problem has been the plasters on the dressings on my left buttock which kept pulling every which way every time I sat or moved or tried to stand or shuffle up the bed or down the bed. It wasn't very nice at all. But that was where a lot of the pain was coming from. My leg is actually behaving itself really well. It's a clean break and it should heal okay. They were worried about nerve damage, but thankfully I can wiggle my toes and I can feel it when they touch the top of my foot, so they're not worried about my leg anymore. So each day since Thursday, the consultants and the doctors have all said, yes, you're good to go home. But because of my low blood pressure and feeling dizzy, they can't let me home because I haven't been able to work with the physiotherapist until today. Today is Sunday. And today I did my furthest walk, which was all of about, 20 feet maybe. My leg is healing quite well, I think. They just need to try and get my hemoglobin level up to reduce my dizziness. I think that's why I'm dizzy. Yesterday was my worst day in hospital. It was filled with pain, with intravenous antibiotics going into my arm, being so painful in the cannula that they had to change it later in the day for the last dose. I had dressings redressed. I also did the stairs again with the physiotherapist, and they were very pleased with my progress on the stairs. But one of the main things was that I wasn't kept in the loop as to what was happening, whether I'd be going home or staying in for another night. I didn't mind staying in for another night, but just through the day there were various things that happened that were really, really painful. And after being in the hospital for 7 days, last night was the night that I just burst into tears. It happens to the best of us. Today I woke up a little bit emotional, very much body drained because I was so tense with everything. And then the girls forgot to knock on my door and say, did I want a cup of tea? And I almost burst into tears again. That just shows you how emotional I was. But since then, the doctor's been keeping me in the loop and the nurse has been really, really good. And everything's being put into place now for my recovery going forward in my local area of Hampshire. So I'm going home today, and it will be lovely to get back and see my son and to be in touch with all my family from my home. Thank you for all your well wishes. Everybody has been so kind in what they've been texting me. So thank you for that. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. And let's see what the future holds for this part-time boater. Bye.